Hey, welcome back to the latest episode of K2. I'm Kevin.
I'm also Kevin.
So we're K2. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Borg.
And the Empire.
Now, we have a long-running argument over who's going to win in a conflict with the Borg and the Empire. I think the Borg are going to win.
Empire. Come on, I got a chance.
I don't think they do have a chance.
What?
But we'll explain as we go along.
Yeah.
So, like I said, welcome back.
Yep.
We're glad you're hanging out with us a little bit. We appreciate that. Make sure at the end of the video you click subscribe and
Like this video?
like it. Comment, share it with friends. We'd love that. So, Kevin, let's talk a little science fiction here. Some way the Borg find their way to the universe where
Wormhole type thing, go through you.
through time and space and
it's there.
poof, out pops a Borg cube in the middle of the Galactic Empire.
Yeah, maybe on the outer room. Who knows where?
Other than everything, come into contact with a Star Destroyer. We really should have had the Imperial Death March playing right there, but... Well, as you can see, Borg cube comes in, meets Star Destroyer.
Star Destroyer here. Well, they start out. The Borg would tractor beam this.
Right, they're going to lock onto the tractor beam, and then they're going to activate the cutting beam.
Yeah, try to take a piece of this off. And then the Star Destroyer will start firing with all the turbo lasers on it.
Well, all the turbo lasers that are facing the cube. Now, if you recall from that episode where the Enterprise first meets the Borg,
yes,
they activate the cutting beam and it cuts out the circular slice, many decks, pulls it through. I mean, that'd be a really cool thing to see being pulled out of the Star Destroyer. Now, some people will say there's no way it's going to happen because the Star Destroyer has shields.
Well, that didn't do much for the Enterprise, and the Enterprise seems to have better shields, generally.
I would agree. Now, Star Destroyer has a lot more firepower than the Enterprise.
Definitely. It could pretty much decimate part of that. But as soon as the shields adapt, it'll be useless.
But I want you to think about Wolf 359. First contact, when Picard takes the Enterprise D? E?
No, it was D.
No.
Oh, first contact?
Yeah, first contact.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
E.
That's not Wolf 359.
You're right, it's not Wolf 359.
That's
that was
the Battle Sector 001.
Thank you. That cube had 60% of its exterior was trashed, but it was still laying waste to...
everything.
So even if...
The Defiant had to go ramming speed.
Yeah, and, well, they were able to salvage the little ship.
Yeah.
Worf didn't think it was funny that it was called the little ship. But anyway. So, yeah, I mean, lots more firepower than the Enterprise itself.
Yes.
Even than the Enterprise E.
Yeah.
But the combined fleet that hit the cube at 001...
Or Wolf 359.
Or Wolf 359.
That was even more devastating.
But the cube is...
A cube.
Redundant power supply, redundant communication nodes, and it repairs itself quickly.
Yes.
Much more efficient than either the Federation or the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I really think toe to toe in a slugfest, yes,
The cube would win.
Well, I was gonna say first, the Star Destroyer is gonna do a lot of damage.
But the cube would win.
I think ultimately the cube's gonna win.
Yes, especially if they get a single Borg on board, it's over.
You get that first Borg, and he starts to assimilate
Stormtroopers and everyone.
And they don't just like jump into the bridge and start assimilating there. They pick quiet places that are out of the way and start the process. Again, I'm going to go back to First Contact for this.
Yes.
You know, in a matter of a very short time, they had assimilated most of the Enterprise E, and there was nothing Federation can do to stop it.
No, there was nothing.
Now, the Federation does not have armored soldiers on board.
No, they do not.
However,
the armor has many gaps, especially in the neck, where they could really generally do attack.
And I don't know there are too many materials that are resistant to Borg nanotubes.
No, probably not many.
So they're going to probably survive longer in a fight.
Yes, definitely.
Simply because they're armored and they have a lot of them.
And the Star Destroyer itself is much larger, has a much larger crew complement. It would take much longer to assimilate.
And I don't think there's a centralized computer system that could be as easily compromised like there was with the Enterprise.
There is a computer system, but it's not as advanced, and
no,
it doesn't seem to be, at least.
I agree. It still takes people to flip switches and levers and
the engine is an engine that you can go into.
Now, some of our counterparts online have talked at length about how a cube would not fare so well against the Death Star.
Yes. And that is probably true if the Death Star can get a shot on it with the gun.
And I think that's the toughest thing. I mean, if you remember from Episode 4, A New Hope, as it's also known, how long does it take to get the Death Star to Yavin 4?
A long time.
And then even once it gets there, it took half an hour at least for it to rotate into position to fire. Now, I mean, this is the thing. The Borg are going to notice the uptick in energy.
Yes.
They're going to see the big gun.
Yeah, if you remember from Episode 1, the Borg cube could just easily come in behind. Just turbulate, that's all they would have to shoot at. But they would have already adapted for the Star Destroyer. So it would be useless.
I agree. I mean, I think one cube against the Empire, if you put all the Empire's, 10,000, 20,000?
25,000.
25,000 Star Destroyers up against one cube. Yeah, they're going to win. They're going to win that fight. However,
they wouldn't win the war.
If one Borg escapes
and survives, it's all over.
It's a long war of attrition, but eventually I think the Borg are going to win.
Yeah. Especially if they get onto Coruscant.
Oh, especially in the lower levels.
There'd be nothing they could do.
Now,
slowly just going up.
I think some of the interesting questions to play around with Borg in Star Wars actually comes around this. What happens when you assimilate Force users?
They would all... Any Force-sensitive Borg would instantly be able to use the Force the way that Jedi could.
So let's say Darth Vader is assimilated.
Then every single person with potential in the Force would know how to use it.
I think that's just a huge kind of thing in a fight like this.
Yeah.
Although, I will say this. I think for Darth Vader, assimilation would be a positive switch.
Off of the helmet.
And he's going to get repaired, and he'll be much stronger. Now, he won't be an individual anymore. He'll be part of the collective.
Yes.
But, well, I think he'll be better off.
Probably.
So, Kevin, you really didn't give me a big fight here with the Empire.
Gotta face the facts. They lose.
Now, I will say, Death Star gets a shot on the cube's toast.
Yeah. But if it survives, but 3 cubes, if they get in, Borg's not gonna hit them all. I mean, the Death Star's not gonna hit them all. They're gonna get in. They can get inside the ship. It's all over.
Right. Now, the Borg are not unstoppable.
They're not.
Species 8472.
Yeah, but that was because they had immunity to the Borg.
They also came from what they called a fluidic space.
Yes, and they could... They had a group of ships that blew up a planet, and they weren't very big ships.
No, they weren't.
It took the Empire a small moon to blow up a planet.
So I think the Empire could put up some resistance.
Yes.
But I think
it's just because of their sheer size.
I think
and possibly, if it works, they could just possibly escape into the unknown regions, a small group of them. But there'd be nothing they could do.
You mean much like the First Order did?
Yeah. But it wouldn't be like they could come back in. They would be out there for good.
And so they could survive. And I mean, again, going back to Star Trek, Guinan's people do this. I can't recall the episode from Voyager where there's the ship that is supposed to be a ticket home, and
yes,
the species has been fighting the Borg for a long time.
Yeah.
and with the end of the Species 8472 battle or war, then now the Borg are concentrating them again, and they can't survive. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there are species that have resisted, but no one has really prevailed against the Borg.
No, they're unstoppable unless you have a natural immunity to them.
Or unless you're Captain Janeway.
Yeah.
And you travel through time and you bring back advanced weapons.
Yay! Then will eventually adapt to those, and then you'll be toast.
That's true.
Yeah.
Ultimately, everyone will be Borg.
Except for the Species 8472. They'd survive.
So, Kevin, any other thoughts on this?
There is one species that lives in the unknown regions. Actually came from another galaxy. I can't think of their name off the top of my head, but they're very strange, and I have no idea how they would fare against the Borg. So, I don't know. That's the only thing in Star Wars that I think could have any chance.
I mean, I think Force users could have a big impact on the battle.
Yes.
And even, like, Vader in a fight with multiple Borg, I think he's going to be devastating. As far as...
I don't know how the Borg would adapt to a lightsaber. Because it comes from that natural crystal. And I have no idea. It's not really technology. In some ways it isn't.
I mean, they're gonna adjust. That's what they do. They adapt.
But it might take a long time.
It might take a while.
They haven't seen anything like that.
But I think even...
Same with Force Lightning. They may not know how to adapt
again,
to that right away.
Energy. They know how to deal with energy.
But it's Force energy, so it might cause problems for them.
It may. But I think the scenario where they actually win in those cases would be simply overwhelming the Force user. Especially when you're talking, you have 10 or 15 Borg against a lightsaber-wielding Jedi or Sith.
He can't defend from all sides.
No. And even if he sends one flying this way or that way, there's still another one behind him that gets involved.
I mean, and the Borg with their size could literally send thousands after a single Jedi.
That's true.
That would be unstoppable.
Now, they're not going to do that in the opening salve of the war with the Empire, but as time goes on, they will have those kind of resources.
Yeah.
Because they'll simply turn Death Stars into Borg modified Death Stars.
And they would just be indestructible.
They would probably recharge faster too.
Probably.
And be more maneuverable.
I just imagine Death Star zooming around.
Borg warp conduits and exiting into hyperspace and all kinds of fun stuff. All right, well, hey, thanks for joining us today for another episode of K2. We won't take as long to get another one out, but we hope you enjoyed. We'll love to see comments, and make sure you subscribe.